Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, it's been a minute. We took a few weeks off. We had a little spring vacation, little spring break, right? Yeah, there's a little bit of it there. And then, of course, we had some stuff come up last week. So a little later getting to this one than we thought we'd be, and apologies for that. But having said that, we are now good to rock and ready to talk tonight. So how you doing?
My name is Randy, and I'm a Florida Gator. Oh, no, wrong meeting. Sorry. It has been a while. No, man, great. Great to be back with you, talking some Gator football, Gator basketball, some happenings. Spring break was great, colder than we thought. Outside of that, happy to be back on the pod with you, my man.
Yeah, man, for sure. Back at you. Definitely, like we said, had some stuff come up last week. We were supposed to go last week again. Apologies for that and being a little delayed, but we're here now, and we're gonna see how this runs. So for this episode, we are gonna take a look at whether or not the identity of Florida football has actually changed or will change in 2025 based on some factors. And we're also going to, of course, do an updated basketball review because we still dancing. Let's go. Let's go. I love it. I love it. Pretty amazing run by this team, and we'll certainly take a look at that as to some things and factors that, of course, have gotten us into the Final Four next weekend. Good stuff. So, as always, we will begin with our intro, our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda. Our mission is, of course, to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football and basketball for the purposes of tonight. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will always be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, unless otherwise noted, and recruiting data comes from on3.com. And I can tell you, we definitely made efforts on that tonight. Had to go back through some data before this pod in order to make that work. So at any rate, we did figure it out, though. So our vision, of course, is to have an unfiltered conversation around the product on the field or the court, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss of our observation of player personnel decisions, as well as on-field/court execution. All right. So our agenda for this evening. It's really going to be pretty short and sweet. We're just going to look at roster construction and expectations for next season. We're then going to talk about if the end of this 24 season momentum can really carry over to 2025 or not, and why we believe it will or won't. And then we will have a March Madness results so far discussion for UF basketball, and that will be the entirety of the agenda, with a slight footnote at the beginning here that I will make, and that you can, of course, elaborate on if you want. We did want to make a note on the coaches. I do think that the coaching has an impact on the change in the identity of this team, right? When we look at some of the things that are potentially going to go into place, some of the coaches we brought in this offseason, especially as it relates to the offensive side of the ball, I think more so than the defensive side. Can we get back to being an offensive team that we actually want to see, that's offensive and not offensive, right? To look at, right? That's can we get back to that? And I think there is some opportunity with that. You know, Russ Callaway's press conference that he gave, kind of talking about the fact that you will see things other than 11 and 12 personnel. Say it ain't so, Russ. Amazing. That would be pretty awesome, and I think would kind of lend us towards kind of changing that identity a little bit, right? If we're getting away from those same base sets on every frickin' down, right? I think that would potentially help us for sure, and also more importantly, just as it relates to changing the identity, as I mentioned. So I wanted to make a quick note on that. We're not going to go into any kind of like further discussion on it, but I do think that when looking at Callaway's promotion, the Spurrier Jr. hire, right, some of the things we already talked about, I do think that there is a potential for that to impact the identity of this team. Do you have any thoughts on that before we move on?
I think the only thing I have to, and first of all, I'll echo those comments, but I think the main thing that I can say is, can I get some zero personnel? That would be great. That would be
double
great.
zero would be awesome.
Double zero would be awesome. And here's the thing, Russ, we know he can call a game. Let's be honest. When he was back at Samford against Florida State a number of years ago, the offensive showing that they put on, and what the Samford Bulldogs did that year from an offensive standpoint. Steve Spurrier Jr., I mean, we get it. We didn't get our wish, right? Santa we were good. We weren't just good enough. So we didn't get our wish of an OC, a dedicated OC outside of Billy calling the plays. But hopefully, with the influence of Callaway and the influence of head ball coach Junior, we're going to see this offense change and morph and develop and adapt and improvise and overcome. See what I did there? And
Yes, indeed.
and hopefully we can see a lot of great things utilizing Lagway and utilizing these weapons that we have, because on paper, this roster is about as good as I can remember. B.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that, and we'll talk about that in a second. I do want to make one other note here. You kind of mentioned it there, in terms of what we wished for and everything with Napier, and I think that's why we're not spending more time on this, is because I think it's important to note. And this is going to be a you got to show me year for me on this, right? We got a Missouri this year, right? Show me state this thing out, and no reference to actual team Missouri, just their state motto, right? And I want to see us actually do something different. I'd love to see 00 personnel. For those that don't know, that's 0 running backs and 0 tight ends. Is that allowed in football? It is. Yes, it very much is. But it's a 5 wide receiver set is what it is. But that is something I would love to see, right? Or maybe a 10 personnel, right, where no tight ends and 1 running back, right? These things would be nice. But until we get to that point, I believe we want to see it is basically what we're getting to, and that's why we're not spending more time kind of delving into this, because I'm not going to. I shouldn't say we don't want to do a review of the potential coaching changes and how they could change the identity, all to see it just kind of be the same old shtick when we go to play calling next year. And until we see proof that that's not going to happen, that's where we're going to leave it. So, final thought on that whole concept. So, having said that, let's move on and talk a little about roster construction and expectations. So, starting talking point here, talent improvement, as well as solid depth at most positions. We know this to be the case. How do we use this to our advantage? What are your thoughts there, Randy?
So a couple things. First and foremost, going back to the comment I made earlier, this roster is about as good as we've had in probably 7 or 8 years, easily. When you look at the pieces that we've acquired, not just through the portal, not just through class construction, signing day, things like that. I look at everything as a whole, and especially from. Let me just focus on one real quick, and I'm going to call it the running back room. Okay, we've got Treyon Rebb coming back. We have Jaden Baugh, who had a breakout freshman season, phenomenal, right? Then you've got Jacoby Jackson, who was on record as saying he's got a lot more in the tank. Okay.
Yeah, love that.
Right? In addition to that, you have Kanane Daniels. So KD did a lot of great things last year in very limited activity. And when he came in, he looked like he can run north-south all day long, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got Chad Gasper coming in, okay? And a couple other, walk-ons to mention. But we literally have a 3-headed, if not 4-headed monster at the running back position. If you can't find some way to integrate that to keep defenses, linebackers, safeties on their heels, then something's wrong with you. Okay, period. I'm sorry. On the quarterback position, right, regardless of what happens with Lagway, we know he's banged up. Okay, that's fine. But guess what? You've got Harrison Bailey. For those of you who don't know, when you look at our season last year, when DJ got banged up, we brought in Aiden Warner. No disrespect to Aiden, but for as young as he was, inexperienced as he was, he looked like a deer caught in headlights time and time again.
Yes, sir.
Now you got Harrison Bailey. And for those of people think, oh, is that UNLV? He was at Tennessee. He's had a couple different spouts, Louisville. Oh, hopefully I said that right for the Louisville people.
Louisville.
Kentucky people.
You call it Louisville.
Yeah, there you go. But that's the thing, folks. I mean, Josh Heupel saw something in him to recruit him initially. So there's that. So besides him, you've got Tramel Jones. What will happen with Tramel? We'll see what happens, especially with the addition of our 2026 quarterback, Mr. Griffin, right? But either way, that room is much more developed. Now, let me take you to, or stacked, I should say. Let me take you to another room. The tight end room, Amir Jackson, Scott Livingston, Tony Livingston, right? Hayden Hansen. And then you've got Cameron Cross filling in some gaps. You got Scott Isaacs filling in some gaps. Yeah, we lost a tight end, but guess what? We were able to replenish. Now let me get to probably one of the most stacked rooms that we have. Wide receiver. This is exciting, especially as B mentioned, zero personnel or double zero personnel, right? Eugene Wilson returns, right, as a redshirt sophomore. Okay. Then you've got a slew. Tank Hawkins is going to return. Mizell's going to return. No problem. Khalil Jackson coming off ACL surgery. No problem. But guess what? Outside of that, you've got Nashawn Montgomery. Okay. You've got Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, and J. Michael Sturdivant, who basically has been told so far in spring practice looks like an absolute pro and a natural. Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay. So that's just that on the offensive side of the football. Regardless of what happens else, we've got a lot of stacked pieces, especially returners on the O-line, returners on the defensive side of the football. I know we lost a lot of key pieces, but at the end of the day, the main thing for me is this team on paper has a lot of talent, a lot of speed, but also they also have scar tissue. They've got a good bit of scar tissue, and especially for the ones that enrolled, they enrolled early. So I think that's a good thing to enroll early, get them in the culture, get them in the mindset, get them in the motions in going through how to prepare to go about your work, right? As Billy says, how do you go about your business? Okay. So the main thing is, I'm telling you, B, these positions are as deep as I can remember. Now it's up to the coaches and the staff to carry that out. Because we have depth everywhere you look. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right. I like it. So I'm going to kind of talk about some of the last stuff you said there first. First of all, really nice comprehensive overview there. I loved it. What I want to throw out here is we brought this up last year talking about the team, the 2024 team, or excuse me, the 2023 team, excuse me. When we were talking about that team, we said the things that we were concerned about were, or not concerned about, but the things that we saw or that we witnessed was that a lot of our talent didn't have experience. And a lot of our experience, I don't want to say didn't have talent, but didn't have as much talent, right? So our more veteran guys were not as talented as our younger guys, because that's who Billy had started to bring in, was younger, more talented guys, right? So we went to the portal, we addressed some of this. Certainly we made some nice portal additions, especially at the receiver position. We've been very good at that. So gives me all the confidence in the world that this talk we're hearing about Jamichael Sturdivant is absolutely true, right? No reason to believe that that's not going to be the case based on all the portal additions that this staff has made and how good they've all been. Pearsall obviously being the standout, though DK possibly a close second when you look at some of those combine numbers. Son, goodness gracious, 4.43. What? That guy wasn't even fast at Wisconsin. He was running 18 miles an hour. Now he's cutting 4.43 40s. What do we do? What are we doing? I don't know.
Thank you, Tyler Miles.
Tyler Miles. Another great article about Tyler Miles that we read. Just a quick sidebar here to talk about, coaches again.
Yeah.
He has been highlighted that there have been multiple different NFL scouts. This is per Nick Delatorre. There have been multiple different NFL scouts that have said that our team, that the Gators in general, right, we're top to bottom, whoever coming to their pro day, were the most physically prepared team for the combine of any program that they had seen. That's high praise. That's really high praise for your strength and conditioning coach, right? It doesn't get a lot better than that. So pretty impressive stuff out of Tyler Miles there. And I think you're seeing some of the evidence of that when you look at Badger, when you look at DK especially, and some of the other guys on this roster. So I have zero reason. And look at the development of Cormani. Look at the development of Trey Wilson. Those guys are stacked now. They were not before. I mean, and that's not to say they wouldn't have gained weight in college, but wow, as you mentioned before with Cormani, we got boulders for shoulders going on, right? So pretty impressive stuff that we're putting together in the weight room. I think it's going to lead to a good season. So to again piggyback on what we were saying there, I think now you see a reversal of what we've seen before, and not necessarily in the fact that our inexperience doesn't have talent. I think they do still, but our experienced players now have talent, right? Whereas before we had one or the other. Now we're seeing both, and I think we're going to see both is what I should say. And that can make a huge difference. That can really make a difference when we look at this, right? Most position groups should get better, as you mentioned, right? There's maybe a handful that are going to be the same, or we'll do that pod later, right, and go through our thoughts on all that. But at the end of the day, the only one that really wasn't pretty good already last season was, O-line didn't start well, but it finished better. And then there was, safety. Safety. That was a rough spot. Sorry.
Oh,
That was a tough one last season. Again, it did improve when we made some changes down the stretch due to injury. But prior to that, man, safety was rough. But anyway, I'm going to focus this around the O-line. We have 4 returning starters from an O-line that became pretty decent by the end of the year. I mean, better than average for sure. And now you got 4 of those guys coming back, and your 5th guy looks like it's going to be maybe Bryce Lovett. Maybe, oh God, the Alabama transfer. His name just went right out of my head. Do you know it?
Oh, hang on.
I apologize, but it could be Devin Manuel. I just got it, Devin Manuel. So it could be Devin Manuel, could be Bryce Lovett, that plays at right tackle. Right, that's what we're kind of looking at. And both of those guys seem like they're kind of in a battle to see who's going to be the starter through spring so far. I'm pretty excited about that because the name Cam Waits is not coming up. And it's not disrespect to Cam, but I did not like him at tackle, right? He can play guard. Let him play guard for sure. It's like a Damian George situation. He just doesn't have the speed and the footwork for tackle. He's too big.
Just like Damian, absolutely.
I think it's the same problem, right? It's nothing, no disrespect on him. I just don't think it's the right position for him. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is here, we got 4 returning starters that got to be pretty decent by the end of the year. In theory, with offseason development, they will be better. It's going to be a cohesive unit because they all played together last year. So you have that need for gel. And Lovett and Manuel both played on this team last year as well, though Manuel got hurt early on in the season, but still played for at least part of the time. So you're going to have that gel effect, right, of all these guys knowing each other, knowing how to work together, knowing the signal calls, all that stuff. You get to where we're talking about an elite offensive line and throw in DJ Lagway behind it with all the running back talent you mentioned. Okay. My ears are up. My attention is on the screen. My eyes are open, right? These are the things that I'm going to want to take a look up and see. And if that happens, if that comes to fruition the way I think it can, the talent improvement there could be monumental. Because as we know, no matter what, no matter how it goes, no matter what anybody wants to tell you, this game is still played and ultimately usually won in the trenches, especially in the SEC. It's all about the line of scrimmage, all about it. And we started to really do better with that as the season went on. Again, if we can continue that and improve through next season, that's going to be something to watch for sure. That's an exciting point from the O-line. I think might be the most excited position group I have or that I'm about going into next season, which is amazing to say because it's the O-line. And as much as we know they're very, very important, it's hard to get excited about them, but I'm excited about it. So we'll see what happens. So to that point, let's carry over and talk about how the end of the season momentum can or can't carry over into 2025. So some thoughts here. Both Randy and I did a ton of digging on this. We really looked. I spent well over an hour, if not 2, trying to go through and research multiple different teams that returned at least, I think I looked at 15 starters as a minimum from prior season and looked at how did they end their previous season and then how did they start their next season or how did their next season go overall, not just how they started. I did find some that ended well and started well, but then they tapered off at the end of the year. Oklahoma State last year was a good example of that. They started really well after coming off a strong finish to the season, and then they just fell off and lost 5 in a row. So, so whoopsies, that didn't work.
You have to bring that up. Boy, they didn't like that.
Yeah, exactly. But they returned like 21 starters from their team the prior season. So pretty more than we had. But nonetheless, I believe we're returning 16, is it? Starters, I think. I believe it's 16. So I looked at 15 and up, like I said, and I can't find a historical precedent is what I'm trying to say, and there may not be one. However, what I want to talk about here is how this could be beneficial for this team, for this Florida team, based on things that started to happen at the end of last season. right? So examples of this that I have are DJ's ability to start making plays and the offense to start kind of believing in that, and not to sound like, they didn't have belief in their quarterback. Of course you did, right? That's one of those asinine things that get said. I know they believed in him before, but what I'm talking about is trust that he's going to make a play. Now, belief and trust are two very different things, right? You can believe in something without fully trusting it, right? You can say like, "Oh yeah, I believe that's possible." Right? Versus I know that this is going to be a thing. Those are two very different statements, right? And it's a very different mindset to carry through. And we don't like to talk a ton about mindset. We prefer to go with data and analytics, right? But I think in this case, it is really relevant to talk about that. And let's talk about the players that are showing improvement as the season moved on both sides of the ball, right? I already mentioned the O-line. What about the defense basically as a whole outside of safety until we got to those injury-riddled times? That defense really showed consistent improvement throughout the season, especially after the well-documented, bye week in 5 and going through that and then coming back for UCF and really just turning a corner, right?
Yes.
So when you look at that, they already have been building, is what I'm trying to say here. Whatever position group it is, we saw improvement even from Lagway, right? We saw some improvement from Lagway as time went on. We saw him making those short and intermediate throws way better than he was at the beginning of the season. I mean, kid could always throw it deep. We know that, but he was a little shaky on some of those screen passes early on. Not as the season progressed, he got way better, right? So what we're seeing is that if they can continue this development, right, through the offseason, into fall camp and into the season next year, that's where I think this momentum could really carry over for them and really serve as a jumping off point, right? It doesn't have statistical proof that it's going to happen, but at the end of the day, when you look at the fact that this team already showed improvement, and assuming they can continue to do that, which is an assumption, but I don't think it's a unreasonable assumption, right? That could happen. When we look at that and say, okay, what does this look like going into next season? When we think about improvement at multiple different position groups, increased depth, increased scar tissue, as you like to say, right? All of those things, and just player development in general, weight training, right? Tyler Miles in the house, all of these things kind of factoring in together. And I think you really have the potential for this team to carry on some of that momentum. I genuinely believe that's possible. It's not a data-driven metric. I can't point to an example, so I don't love that. However, I can point to enough about this particular team and what we have seen in their development that assuming it continues to be continuous, I think you've got a real shot to see them move on, onward and upward, if you will, in 2025. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So first of all, great points there from that 10,000-foot view.
Thank you.
The second thing I will say is we really hate certain things we can't tie back to metrics. I mean,
Yep.
it just is what it is, and that's
wrong.
fine.
You're not wrong. We
It's
don't like
fine.
it.
But if I can quote the great Coach Herman Boone from Remember the Titans, of course, you cannot replace a Graham Mertz. Of course, he said Gary Bertier, but I'm just saying leadership is the big thing for me because when I look at Graham and the way he went about his business, okay, you look at Ricky Pearsall, the way he went about his business. You
Yep.
look at Shamir DK and the way he went about his business. You look at all these different players, Jason Marshall, and the way he went about his business. And we've had a lot of commentary on Jason from when he came in as a coveted 5-star and his career at UF, never missing a game until the shoulder injury and going down. And to see the 180 that we saw in him over the past season was amazing. I say that to say leadership and the way that Napier is building this program, building out the positions, the front office we talked about, but also the field staff, and to see what they've put in place. It starts with leadership and it starts with accountability. So I think with that, what really carries over? B, you had some great points. Development all day long, because that's the other thing too, right? About talent and hard work. What was that Muhammad Ali quote or Will Smith quote, whatever, talent, hard work can outwork talent when talent just doesn't show up, right?
Yep.
And so here's the thing about that. It reminds me, believe it or not, that is a comparative that I have to the Steve Spurrier days where it was just blue collar working, as
Yep.
the old ball coach would put it. Yeah, well, what kind of blue collar, just get in there and do what we have to do. Sometimes not always pretty, but we're gonna fight. We're trying to do it the right way. And that's what I see a lot of going on here. And so, with that being said, yeah, we lose a Mertz, we lose a Montrell Johnson, we lose a Shim DK. But out of that leadership piece, if this team rallies around each other in like fashion, the way that Napier got all of them to rally around Lagway, especially after the Tennessee game and Mertz goes down, to have all the stress and pressure on the world on this kid out of Willis, Texas, to do what he did. And like you said, he didn't start. I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, Sanford game was what it was. But outside of that, a little shaky, some inconsistencies. But to rally around him, to protect, even after the hamstring injury, to protect him, to see the stretch that we finished with, and not just to say we finished with a good stretch, but the LSU and Ole Miss game back to back, to have a performance like that, that is where I look at the momentum for this 25 team. Okay. Because it was almost as if seeing isn't believing, believing is seeing. Well, which one is it? Okay. Because we've seen this kid with all the stress and pressure in the world, like I mentioned, come in and deliver some absolute beautiful balls and have the ability to spin it tight, spin it long, and be accurate downfield. By downfield, mean 20 plus yards. So having that been said, and great call out on the offensive line, by the way, great call out, because that O line is really going to, as we say, set the tone for how we're going to play, how we're going to push the ball, the tempo of this offense, and not to mention, oh yeah, we have this coveted 5-star QB back here. I'm just telling you right now, you're not going to get to him. He's just going to do whatever he wants to do all day long, and you're going to have to sit there and deal with it, right? And so when you look at those pieces, development goes into it, leadership goes into it, accountability goes into it, and the far thing that I think will exceed everything else, and Napier said it after 2 particular games last year, the power of belief. The talent is there. The roster is there. Is the belief there, like we started seeing it being there the end of the 24 season? Belief will be key going into this fall. I'll leave it at that.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think everything you said there is very true. And again, I think it does get tough when we don't have the data to lead it back to, because we always try to do that, and we will in the next section, I can assure you. But having said that, I do think there's something to this, right? Like you mentioned, I think that there is something to the especially as it relates to this team again, with the bonds that they've formed, right? We talked about it all season last season. No matter what, this team never quit. They never quit trying. They never quit playing. They never gave up, no matter what the scoreboard said, even in the blowouts. They did not quit playing. And they haven't, again, as far as I've seen, really under Napier pretty much at all. And that's an amazing and impressive thing when you look at kids of this age getting, disenfranchised by the scoreboard, right? It's very easy to just throw in the towel, and they don't do it. They just don't do it. And that is something that I am really, really looking forward to as well, because when you start talking about now a team that can put kind of a lot of these things together, right, from a talent perspective, from a roster perspective, from a maybe even a play calling perspective. We'll see. Whoa. Yeah, I'm not. The jury's out, as I mentioned earlier. But when you start seeing that, and then you put it into, this is what we've talked about before, is that if you have the right attitude, if you have the championship kind of behavior and mindset, right, that is there in terms of just the way you go play every single day, that can go a long way. It can go a really long way if some of those other factors can even come together a little bit. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting year. So I'll ask this question to close before we go into basketball. Do you think we see an identity change, not like a dramatic one, right? I'm not saying do we become an air raid team, right, versus a run the ball, run first pass second team, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying a concept shift, but like, do you see the identity of this program change and get back to a little of the swagger and some of the moxie that we had, in years gone, right? Kind of like the basketball team does now.
Wow. So what I will say to that is, it's interesting when you look at talent, uh, and some of the pieces that we've had over the past, just call it 10 years. We've had some really deep pieces, had some awesome pieces.
Yep.
And yeah, from a position standpoint, from a skill set standpoint, when you look at those positions, it's nice to have one. And it seems like with this roster right now as it stands, we've been blessed with multiple at those skill positions
In a lot of different places. Yes, I would agree.
in a lot of different places. If we cannot utilize all that talent, if we cannot devise a scheme, a package, a set, a route, a whatever have you, okay, for these players and their gifts and their abilities and their ability to come here to the University of Florida, to the Swamp, and contribute to the orange and blue, then shame on the staff.
Yep.
They have to see the potential, they have to see the talent, and they have to be just licking you know what it is? I'll call it this. And I will be bold and say this. That's a first world problem they've got right now. I'll just say it like that.
Indeed.
It's a
Indeed.
first world problem to go, you've got a four-headed monster at running back. You have a five-headed monster at wide receiver. Like, like, I mean, put me in the game, coach. We got
Yeah.
team A, we got team B, we got team C. Here's the A package, B package, C package. Okay. Defense, GFL. Good freaking luck. Um, so can we redefine that identity, change that identity? I agree with you. Not go back to, I mean, not just dime 180 air raid all of a sudden, but have some of those things peppered in and to keep defenses on their heels, safeties on their heels, linebackers on their heels. That would be fantastic.
Yep. We will see. Um, so yeah, I think what we're getting from that is we're both saying we think it's possible,
It
but we're
is
not going to say that it happens yet. Still got to be a wait and see. So,
possible, not
um,
probable.
yeah, maybe possible, not probable. We'll find out. We'll find out. Time will tell. All right, let's talk Gator basketball. Final Four Gator basketball. Let's go. The only
Speaking of
bonus we
fantastic,
have about doing this pod a week later than we're supposed to is we now know that this team is Final Four bound for San Antonio, which is pretty freaking amazing. I won't say it's completely unexpected. We ended up being the betting favorite in March Madness, as was definitely not known right pre the tournament that was going to happen. But the way we closed out that SEC title, the way that we went through and have played in these first few games, I mean, there's been some ups and downs. Certainly, we'll talk about that. But I think overall, it's just been pretty amazing to see this team do what they've done. So I will let you kick it off. Give me your thoughts on Gator basketball thus far in the NCAA tournament, sir, or beyond, even if you want. But we'll focus on the tournament for the most part.
for sure. I think the interesting thing for me is when I look at the way that they've made their way through the tournament thus far. Um, you know what, Norfolk State, the first half, believe it or not, is what I expected. And for the Norfolk game, we won, 95-69. Okay, that was what it was. But what was tough for me was to see the way we started the second half, the
Agreed.
sluggishness. Okay,
Yeah.
the complacency of that, and that's one thing that I wondered is when we get challenged, because this team also has not given up. I can speak to the Arkansas game. I can speak to the South Carolina game at Arkansas,
Oh,
at South Carolina, where
yes.
we very well deserve to lose. I'll just say that right now. Okay,
Yep.
coming into the tournament with a 30-4 record. Are you kidding me? Okay,
Yep.
to see how we started the second half at Norfolk State, eh, I was like, oh boy, when we get a challenge, which very well could be in round two, and guess what? UConn was in round two. And I know UConn's not the UConn of old, but to squeak out of there with a 2-point win, 77-75, talk about battle tested. Holy smokes. To win a wire to wire game like that, there's a guy named Walton Clayton Jr. who kind of came up big, couple of big shots, whatever. Dilly had
One or two, one or two. He's
one or
only
two.
drawing Steph Curry comparisons, but that's cool.
It's cool. But that I think was the game that we needed to show the fact that okay, we've got depth, we've got toughness, but more importantly, we have grit to be able to withstand a late deficit, come back, keep poise, switch some things around in the game plan. That's good. Next, third round, right? Florida, Maryland. The Maryland game, I tell you what, the first half was lackluster for me.
I would
Lackluster.
agree. I would agree.
Right? And then the second half comes out, and the first 5 minutes, it's like, what are we going to do? Here it is. Guess what?
Yep.
Cylinder 7 and 8 were misfiring, but now 7 and 8 are backfiring again, so we're on all 8 cylinders. And we go on to win that game 87-71. So for
Yep.
that game, it was tough because the Crab Five, which I don't necessarily agree with the name, but I like what you did there, Maryland. I like what you did.
Yeah, I like the goal, but I think it's a bit overstated. I think it's a little bit of a reach.
Yeah, it is. It is. But hey, no bench. We knew what they were going to do. One bench point. Thank you very little. To win that game, obviously expected to win there, so that was great. Texas Tech. I do not understand how Texas Tech started that game shooting,
My God.
As Kevin Harlan would say, with no regard for human life.
Indeed.
I don't get it. It was like NBA Jam. What, they made another one?
He's on fire.
One? He's heating up. What like they came out with a damn flamethrower.
Yep.
So my thing in that game was to see how we withstand those runs. And I tell you what, I know people talk about Walt, and obviously I'm not saying he doesn't deserve his flowers, but Thomas Houtt was single-handedly the MVP in that game, especially in the first half, between hustle plays and everything else. In that second half, B, I'm telling you right now, the run that, and it wasn't even a prototypical run. It was just Texas Tech out hustling, out shooting to get out to the lead that they did. And I think I may have told you, right? I think I may have told you at the 9-minute mark, I'm like, hey, where's that run? Okay, another 7-minute mark. Hey, how about that run? 5.5-minute mark. Oh, we got a little run. No, we don't. And then all of a sudden, with about 2:30 to go, then it's like, afterburners, here we go. Okay, let's clamp down. And I tell you what, the interesting strategy about that, and this is one thing I've seen in Todd Golden, because he's an analytical guy and no problem with it. No problem. His analytics have served him well. Todd Golden made a very controversial decision in that Texas Tech game. Okay. And the same thing he did was the fact of, looking back at some of the other games this year where we had tempo issues, spacing issues.
Yep.
Let's start to foul. Let's put him on the line. Let's break him up. 'Cause I'm telling you what, JT Toppin had his way downtown. I mean, from a points in the paint, say that 5 times, points in the paint perspective, they were beating us. Bottom line.
They were, but it was actually less about Toppin. I think at one point he was like 4 for 15 on 2-point field goals. Like, we actually did a really good job on him in the paint. It was more Williams that was kicking our butt down there.
Thank you. Yep. He just bodied up. He used his hips, turned, and I get it, Condon. I get Alex had the ankle, but at the same time too, as much as I love Alex and what he's done this year and how he's developed, I hate it when 6'11" plays like 6'6" or 6'7".
Yeah,
and I think he's done too much of that this year. That aside, challenges. We've had challenges. We've had to sustain runs. We've had to sustain foul trouble. We've had to sustain poor shooting. We've had to sustain a late start. We've had to sustain so many different things. But time and time again, this team has so much grit and so much continuity. And one of the things I loved especially from the post game at Texas Tech, after the Texas Tech game, was when asking Walt about, asking Will Richard, hey, Will, you didn't have a great game. Okay, because when you look at the breakdown of the Texas Tech game, I'll take that one since it's the most recent game. Obviously, Walt goes for 30. Houtt goes for 20. Martin goes for 10. And then you've got a slew behind at 6, 6, 4, and 2. But outside of that, Will Richard with the 6, right? Didn't really hear much from him in the game. Like, Will, what are your thoughts on, your night struggle, this, that, and the other? I tell you what, Walter Clayton was the first one to speak up. It's okay. It's okay. He didn't need to. It wasn't his night. And that's the one thing I notice about this team, right? Will has the ability to go out and score 25. Martin has the ability to go out and score 25. Walt, obviously. But guess what? They all don't need to do it at the same time. They share the ball great. They complement each other well. And more so than anything else, and obviously not knowing how it would be like bringing over Elijah Martin, this team has found a way to be as cohesive as it can be, as if they've been playing together for 4 or 5 years. It's phenomenal to watch. That part of it I greatly, greatly appreciate. And commend Todd Gold and the staff for doing so. Speaking of Todd Gold and the staff, really a shame. This is what happens when you win and you build a great program. Really hate to see those two assistant coaches take head coaching jobs elsewhere. We're going to miss them, but clearly you're doing something right when other schools come calling for your coaches.
Yep, for sure. I think those are all extremely valid points. So I've got some stats, I've got some data. Yay. But I think I want to start with kind of some of the overall that you've kind of talked about here in terms of this team. Here's what I'll say as my overall evaluation of this team. The first 10 minutes of the Norfolk State game is how I feel like Florida was playing coming into this tournament. Just lights out. And it's not because we went up by the ridiculous number that we did. It's just how we were playing, right? If you looked at, we talk about the strength of an opponent a lot in football, right? And what that means and how you have to adjust for that. But there's still things you can look for even when your opponent is weaker. You can still look for the way we're executing offensively, defensively, right? Things of that nature. How crisp is the offense running? What do the passes look like? What do the shots look like? What does the shot selection look like, right? Things of that nature. And that game started in the first 10 minutes as being exactly how we finished the SEC tournament, which was absolutely on fire. Just best basketball I've seen Florida play all year. We continued that. And I thought to myself in those first few minutes, I said, if we play like this in this tournament, we're winning a national title. And then we proceeded to not play like that again since. And it's the truth. We've had moments, right? The last 3 minutes of the Texas Tech game, we played like that for sure. That was as good as it gets, no question. But what I mean is we haven't consistently played like that in the rest of the tournament that I've seen pretty much at all, whether it's been a deficiency at shooting the ball, right? Like we normally would, and not just from three, just in general, right? Missing easy shots at the basket repeatedly. Like Florida doesn't do that. They're way too efficient a team to do that consistently. So, stuff like that's been going on. Missed dunks. How many missed dunks has Florida had in this tournament? Like 5? I've never seen so many missed dunks in my life. Like it's ridiculous. I don't know what's going on. It's like we forgot how to dunk the ball. I don't know what's going on. It's just really, really bizarre stuff that I've seen in some of these things. But what it has given us, and the positive in all this, is that other than those first 10 minutes against Norfolk State, I think this team knows they haven't really played their best basketball, at least consistently, throughout this tournament. We put that together now for this upcoming weekend. Good luck. I say good luck to anybody, and including Duke, because they're not ready for what that team can do. We can be the most explosive team from a run standpoint, right? We talked about it earlier in the season. All those runs they had in non-conference play. At one point, I believe a 27-0 run against Wichita State in the early season tournament that we had. I mean, are you kidding me? 27-0? What is that? That's like Gonzaga, Georgia numbers. Like, what are we doing, right? Yes, that's a dig at Mike White. Yes, it is.
Nicely done.
Anyway, moving along. So I think that when we look at this team, other than those first 10 minutes, really hasn't shown what they can actually do. Again, at least not consistently. Yes, in moments. Certainly the last 3 minutes of that Texas Tech game is what they can do. That's absolutely an example of it. But I haven't seen it for a full half yet at all throughout the tournament. Give me one half like that, right? The second half against Maryland was pretty good, but it still wasn't as good as we can be and as good as we were doing in the SEC tournament in the first 10 minutes of that Norfolk State game. So I say all that to say, I don't know how we're going to play in the Final Four. And if we don't play better than we have recently here, we're in trouble because Auburn's no joke. I don't care how bad we beat them at their house. They're no joke. They're a real team. And certainly whoever we play in the title game, whether it's Duke or Houston, my money's on Duke. But whoever it is, they're a very good team also. So little perspective here. I'm going to start with some stuff to look at. So when you look at adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency, I won't get into what that means as far as the adjusted goes and everything else. There are only 2 teams that remain in the top 10 in both, and that is us and Duke. Now, we are currently 2nd and 9th in those rankings. Duke is 1st and 3rd in those rankings, offensive and defensive, respectively. Yikes. That's pretty good. Now, this stuff has kind of evolved and changed as the tournament's gone on. We were actually number 1 in this going into the tournament. Duke has taken that back over since the tournament started. So, but ultimately, we're the only 2 teams that are still in that offensive, at least based on the source that I was looking at, which was KenPom. But again, I won't get into all those rankings. The point being is it's a very interesting look at where we stand in terms of that, right? So here's some more specific stuff to look at. Walter Clayton, let's talk about it. You mentioned him. He's the guy right now for sure. He is currently the leading scorer in the tournament for any team that made the Elite Eight and therefore also the Final Four. He is the top scorer at 22.25, I believe, points per game, rounded up to 22.5.
There you go.
He is also top 10 with teams remaining in terms of players, top 10, not top 10 teams. Obviously, there aren't 10 teams left, but he's top 10 for 3-point shooting with the teams that are still in there as a single player if we look at least 12 attempts a game. He's shooting 45.2% from 3 overall, despite having a terrible night the other night from 3 until the very end of the game where he finally got going. And we are 4th in the teams remaining in free throw shooting. Oh, I'm sorry. He is 4th in the team within the teams remaining at free throw shooting at 88.6%, with at least three free throws attempted. Say that fast per game during the tournament as well. So those are just some stats on Walter and how amazing he has been. In my mind, he's already the tournament MVP. And it's not because I'm a Gator fan. Like, you look at the stats across the board, there are very few players that are doing as well as him consistently across all these different areas. It's incredibly impressive, incredibly impressive. And of course, there's the clutch gene as well, which, again, a lot of these teams haven't necessarily had to show. Houston had one tight one with Gonzaga, but it wasn't that tight at the end. And then for the most part, they've dominated everybody else. Duke the same way. And you can say what you want about dominating teams in the tournament, but the problem is when you run into a team you're not going to dominate, then what? So we're going to find out. We're going to find out, right?
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. But we already know what that looks like for our tournament because we ended up with a very difficult path, more difficult than I thought it would be, honestly. But hey, we took care of business and we did just fine. So a couple team stats for you. As a team, we are 2nd, again, within remaining teams in field goal shooting percentage at 47.1%, and 2nd overall as well in remaining teams in scoring at 85.8 points per game. So pretty impressive stuff. The team that is ahead of us in both of those metrics is Duke, but I would argue their road has not been quite as difficult in teams we've played. I mean, they dominated Alabama. Well, so did we. So what's your point, right? Except we did it at their house, right? And then again in the tournament. So there's that. We still, meaning the conference tournament, excuse me. So overall, that's something that I think really plays in. So just some stats to keep in mind, and it's not to say that I think we're in any way guaranteed to win this. Listen, Auburn's a legit team. They're a legit team, and if we do not come out and play them the same way we did when we went to their house, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. We can't continue to play the way we've been playing. But if we can display the basketball that we've shown we can play on multiple different occasions throughout this season, you got a legit shot. You got a legit shot to really take this thing home and bring home the ultimate hardware. And like you mentioned, with some of these guys really stepping up, right? Elijah Martin's been fantastic. Obviously, Thomas Houck has been incredible. Absolutely incredible on both sides of the ball. His defense in that Texas Tech game kept us in the game. His defense was amazing. The intelligence of it to keep guys going in ways that they didn't want to go. I mean, he was just really, really impressive in that game. I can't say enough good things about him. Love that he is a lifelong Gator fan. Love that he wants to be at the University of Florida. I mean, you know, you can say what you want about the portal and NIL and everything else. I get it. I understand all that stuff's a part of the game now. I'm not knocking it. I think in a lot of ways it's the way things, you know, maybe should be, whatever, not the portal timing and the way some of that stuff works, but just in general, I think it's probably right that it is that way. But when you get kids that are like Thomas Houck, that are like Dameon Pierce, who want to be a Florida Gator and have desire and drive to play for a school, don't tell me that doesn't motivate them during the game. There's no question about it. No question about it. And that stuff really, really matters. And I think what you're seeing is that Golden said at the end of the game, they look for guys who want to come and be Gators. It's not just about the NIL deals. It's not just about the transferring in to be part of a program that's going places or moving up or whatever. It's about the fact that they want to be Gators, and that it just goes a long way. And I think Billy has the same mindset, for what it's worth, to transfer this back to football.
Oh
I
yeah.
think the culture in both these locker rooms is as good as I've seen it at any point in time in Florida football, basketball / combined, right? When you go back to Spurrier days and some of the culture in that locker room, I think it was pretty darn good, but the basketball team didn't have it then, right? Nothing against Lon Kruger. He was solid, but I don't think we were really getting it done at that point in time. Fast forward to Billy Donovan years. Culture in the basketball room, pretty darn gone good, right? But we could have conversations about Urban Meyer's culture. I'm not calling under the carpet or anything, because obviously he won us 2 titles, but culture in the locker room, I don't know. That's another conversation, right? So
Suspect.
yeah, it's a little sus for sure. So when you look at this, I don't know that I've ever seen it be as good on both sports as we're seeing it right now with the culture in the Gators and the basketball and football locker room. It's impressive to see, and it's fun to watch, is what it comes down to. That's really all I got. Any other thoughts on that?
Well said. No, it's amazing to see the carryover, right? Between basketball and going back to that C word, culture, all about the culture. And I tell you what, this team is capable of so much. Go back to when you mentioned a complete game. I watched pretty much every single game this year, either on replay, but front to back. If I might be so bold to say, that probably the best, most comprehensive game we played all year was at Auburn.
Yeah, it was really good.
At Auburn in their house. And if you remember in that game early, we were down 8 or 9. And for whatever reason, and the things I love about Walter are the same things I hate about Walter at the same time, right? And hold on, let me explain. His nonchalant attitude sometimes frustrates me, but at the same time, he's like, man, don't worry about it. I got you.
And
He
then
just
and
goes about
then
his business,
and then he's
you
got
know?
you for sure.
And then he's got you. And then he's got you. And then he does Steph. I'm not saying a full comparison, but Steph-esque like things, like drive down the lane. Okay, I can go amongst the bigs. Let me dribble back out. Let me do a turnaround fadeaway 3. Oh yeah, money. What?
Yeah. In
So
in the last minute of the game, mind you. So it's not
mind
just
you,
that he did it; it's that he did
right?
it in crunch time with a tight scoreboard. Like
And
what?
and he did. And that's the funny thing about, when Steve Kerr was interviewed years ago, he goes, Steph made this shot, it was in the Cleveland series, and he made this shot from 3 with about 3 to go on the shot clock. They're down by this, and he heaves up a 29-footer, and he's like, that's a bad shot for 99.8% of the NBA players out there, but for Steph, that's a good shot. You
Yeah.
gotta give it to him. That's why he has the green light. So that is what it is. So Walt has proven to raise his level of play in this tournament and come up big down the stretch, right? Whatever you want to call him, cold-blooded Clayton, right? Clutch Clayton, whatever the case might be, it's working. Hey, B, by the way, this just in, breaking news. Breaking news. 4-star quarterback Javari Flowers has committed to the University of Florida. Let's go.
No kidding. What year? 26?
25.
Well, no, it can't be
No,
25, right?
nope, I apologize. Nope, that's going to be 26.
Hmm. Interesting. With Will Griffin? Intriguing. Okay. Wait, did you say quarterback or cornerback?
Corner.
Oh, okay. That makes way more sense. That's nice. Good stuff. I like it. I heard we were projected to get a corner. I didn't realize it was him, though. Nice. Good deal.
That
Good
is
deal.
he.
Little recruiting news hot off the presses there.
Yep.
Love it. Good
That's
stuff.
going to be awesome. That's going to be awesome. Yep.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Another good get. Billy continues to do well on the recruiting trail. We'll see how the things play out as the year goes along, but it's certainly looking promising in that regard. All right. So with that, I think we will wrap this thing up and sign it off. Our next pod will be April 15th, tax day, everybody, with a
Yeah.
review, our annual review of the 2025 spring game. I believe Randy and I are both planning to attend in person, but then we will, of course, review film as well and kind of talk about some of the things we saw, go through a more standard pod like we do during the season, and break all that down. And of course, we'll have a quick note on how the Gators finish things up in the NCAA tournament with basketball as well. So to that end, I think, as always, thank you so much for everybody who has taken the time to spend with us here, and we will continue to work on bringing you these as best as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and moving along. Oh, and you just texted me late signee, so it is 25.
It
Wow.
is,
Okay.
yeah. That's what I wanted to clarify, everyone. It is a
Yeah.
very late signee, but
Very.
nonetheless,
Very, but hey, we will take it. More bump for
we
the
will.
2025 recruiting class. Have to see where that makes us in rankings. So we'll have to check that out. But I love it. I love it. Good
Yeah, we'll check
stuff.
the
Good
update.
stuff. All right, nice. So again, thanks to everyone for taking the time. We again continue to do this just out of our love and passion for. I guess we have to say Gator sports now, and not just Gator football. But
Hey yo.
but yeah, no, we really enjoyed it as always. And I'll turn it over to you for any closing thoughts before you take us out.
No, definitely great. Be great conversation. Great to be back in the pod seat with you. This was awesome. And I tell you what, wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around, Gator Nation.